good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in across the continent for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. If you're joining us for the first time, like quite a few of you are, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and everything we do goes to our YouTube channel. So if you want to check this out in 3 weeks or 3 years, or like 4,000 other broadcasts, you can head there and do just that. Now, before I dive in with our topic du jour, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun, you can pull up that game pin below to keep it extra interactive and exciting. Now, today is particularly exciting because this whole month of February, we have spent, since our inception, the entire month kicking out all the dudes and spending the whole month solely showcasing and celebrating the most amazing women in science on planet Earth. We've got like 50 broadcasts this month. It's wild. They're all on that YouTube channel. So many amazing people to explore and discover. But we do it this month because of today. Today is February 11th. It is the International Day for Girls and Women in STEM. UNESCO, the UN, all sorts of organizations around the world are celebrating this with all sorts of cool programs. And we wanted to celebrate by bringing back 2 of our favorite scientists in the world. We just wrapped up with Dr. Wendy Bowen talking about mega quakes, which is just fun to say. And we wanted to keep on the theme of like the coolest, best, biggest, most awesome things ever by bringing in Dr. Lauren Erland. She is going to talk to us about the coolest plants on planet Earth. Now, some of you might be like, plants? Not so sure. We got some sharks. We got some other big toothy creatures this month. Then you got to sell me on plants. Well, I guarantee you by the end of this broadcast, you will be every bit as excited as Lauren and I. So without further ado, Lauren, welcome back to the broadcast. And tell us about these cool plants you want to share with us.
Thanks, Jesse. I am so excited to be here with you all, and I'm so excited to just talk about super cool, crazy plants today. And I will say, this broadcast could be 5 hours long because they are pretty cool. I've had to pick a selection, but I just want to acknowledge that all of the plants are cool, and I would hate to actually pick favorites. So today's theme, coolest plants in the world. This is botanist. This is me in Greenland finding every single plant that I thought was the coolest that day. And we're going to go through some of my favorites today. So one of my favorite things to do when I'm thinking about, making a list or thinking about plants is to start by asking, like, what is this thing I'm talking about? So, what is a plant? And what do we all like to do these days? We like to go to Google. We like to ask the AI. So if I ask Google's AI what a plant is, this is what it tells me. It says a plant is a living, largely stationary organism in the kingdom Plantae that's characterized by its ability to make its own food through photosynthesis. So they don't move and they're green. And actually, I think this is terrible. AI has done us wrong once again, because there's lots of plants, it turns out, that don't photosynthesize, so they aren't green, and they can actually move. So let me show you some examples to start off. So not all plants make chlorophyll. So maybe some of you, I think there's a group here from Pennsylvania. That's a great place to go to find these plants. This is called ghost pipe, Monotropa uniflora. This is actually related. It's in the same family as blueberries. You would never guess by looking at it probably, unless you look very closely at the shape of its flower. But this plant makes no chlorophyll at all. So it's not green, it's totally white. All the green around it is other plants. And this plant is actually a parasite. So we think about, things that eat plants usually is like animals or bugs or microbes, but plants actually eat other plants. And so this is a parasitic plant. It grows its specialized little roots into the roots of other plants, and then it sucks out all of the sugar that it might want to make. Instead of making it from the sun, it steals it from other plants. So if we're looking at our kind of AI definition, it's wrong on the first account because we actually have plants that are totally white and will steal all their sugar from other plants. And some of these parasitic plants are really, really, really smart. So this is on my list of one of the smartest plants in the world because it can actually smell other plants and it can tell other plants apart. So this is the daughter vine. And you've got a little tomato plant in the picture here and the little tiny spiral around it, that little tiny tendril of vine. It doesn't even have any roots. It can move around, so it's moving, it's not stationary, and it can smell out its favorite hosts. So the host that it thinks makes the tastiest sugars. Every plant has kind of a signature aroma. We know this a little bit, a lavender smells different than a rose, but even the non-flowering parts of plants can make different smells, and plants use them for all different things. When Jesse and I talk about plant intelligence, one of the really cool things they do is they can signal to pests and predators, so they can say, wasps, I'm being invaded, come and eat these caterpillars for me. But sometimes other plants will kind of eavesdrop, and the daughter plant is one of the one that does that. So it'll eavesdrop on these plant signals, find its preferred host, and it's kind of like a vampire. It'll sink its roots into the plants once they find it and suck out all of their sugars and their little plant blood. So the daughter vine, super, super smart. It moves lots. It doesn't make chlorophyll, but it is still a plant. So I think it's pretty cool. Maybe it'll be on our list for smartest plant. And then I couldn't do a presentation about coolest plants in the world without including the Venus flytrap. So plants move. Lots of plants move quite slowly. Some plants move quite fast. And I'm going to show you a picture of this. Couple things to pay attention to when we're watching this. So you can see little tiny hairs on the surface of the plant inside of this trap. They're little tiny brown hairs. And of course, we've got our sad victim, the grasshopper here. So I'm going to play this. So the grasshopper touches the plant and it closes, and it's going to have a nice tasty meal. So the grasshopper is going to hit those little tiny hairs inside. Once it triggers them, the plant goes, lunch, closes up, and it's going to start digesting that grasshopper pretty quickly. We just have to watch it one more time because it's so cool. Okay. So plants move. Plants don't necessarily make chlorophyll. Plants aren't necessarily green. What exactly is a plant then? Because I think everyone thinks I might have lied to them at the beginning of this. So what is a plant? If we, as a plant scientist, how we think about plants is anything in the kingdom Plantae. So we go back and we think about evolution and genetics. And so anything in this kingdom includes all of our beautiful flowering plants. So your roses, your lavenders, it includes your gymnosperms. So that is things like pine trees and sequoias. We've got our ferns, our mosses, and then we've got these other really cool plants that are called charophytes. And these are actually somewhere between an algae and a plant. And they're super cool because they have what I'm going to call the world's biggest cells. So if we look at these are basically like pondweed. So if you've got a pond nearby, if you take a rake and you throw it to the bottom of the pond and you scrape it up, you might come out with some of these plants. And I say this because I have gone out to a pond and I have thrown a rake in my rubber boots and pulled up these plants, because each of these plants, when you look at them, between those little kind of fronds they have, that's a whole cell. So those internodal cells, they're 10 centimeters long. So if you think about a ruler and you look at 10 centimeters, that's one cell. I feel like that might be a bit big, Jesse.
Bit big, yeah.
Like
10 centimeters? Oh yeah, sorry, what am I thinking? I'm a bad Canadian. My mind went straight to inches. That's terrible. Oh no.
Oh
yeah.
Yes, I don't know how to convert that to inches. That's 10 centimeters divided by
4 inches.
4 inches. 4 inches, 10 centimeters. So if you think about like you can't see an individual cell on your hand. If I hold up my hand and I try to look at my cells, they're much too small to see with just my eyes. I need a microscope. But in these plants, they're so big that you can just see them by looking at them. And I think this is just crazy. And this lets us do really, really cool things as a plant scientist, because we can actually look at an individual cell. So this is a piece of Cara. It's in a Petri dish. And what we've done is we've put a dye in that shows when the plant is sending a signal. And when it's sitting stationary, it'll change from blue to yellow. So it's showing us signaling in a plant. We're actually watching signals being sent in a single cell. So we tie it at the bottom, and we know that the cells are between those little fluffy fern bits. So if I take my little pipette tip here and I poke it, you'll see the blue goes away. So we're watching in one single cell the messages that it's sending to respond to its environment. And this is so cool. This isn't a microscope. This is just like with my cell phone that I was able to take this photo. So biggest cells in the world, or in the Cara. Okay, now we're going to do biggest, smallest, oldest for our theme. So if we want to know what the smallest plant in the world is, what the smallest tree in the world is, would you believe me if I told you that this is a tree? So this is actually the snowbed willow. You believe me, Jesse? You're buying in?
I believe you. I always believe you. Yeah.
Good. So this is the other one, you know, maybe you're not sure about scale. This is moss for scale. You can see these little tufts. So if you think about what moss normally looks like, these trees are barely bigger than moss. They only grow 1 to 2 centimeters tall, and you find them all over the Arctic. So Greenland, Nunavut, like all northern Canada. If you go over to northern Europe, these are our tiniest trees in the world. They're little tiny willows. They grow as these big dense mats. So you'll have a whole bunch of individuals there. And they're only 1 to 2 centimeters tall. So that's like, it's not even 1 inch, right? That's a whole tree. And so you can see this is a female tree here. You can see their little buds that they'll make their willow fluffs out of, just like a big willow tree. Previous photo, you can see the pollen on this one. So that is our tiniest tree in the world. And we can compare that to the biggest tree in the world. So I don't know if anyone's got any guesses. Jesse, do you have a guess at the biggest tree in the world?
I have a big guess for this one. I came close to seeing these guys, and I'm pretty sure it's the giant sequoia or coast redwood, one of those two. Probably a sequoia for heaviest, thickest tree in the world.
You're right, Jesse.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
the California redwoods are our tallest trees in the world. So if you think about our 1 to 2 centimeter tall little willows up in the Arctic, you can compare that to the California redwoods that are 116 meters tall. So these are the biggest trees in the world. I'm pretty sure that like one leaf on these sequoia trees is orders of magnitude, like way bigger than an entire tree up in the Arctic. So this is pretty cool. The reason that this happens is the plants choose to do this is we think about the environment they're growing in. So if we're thinking about, why does a plant do these things? Why is this tree so tiny and why is this tree so tall? If you think about living in the Arctic, you've got like really cold winters. There's only a short amount of time in the year where you're not covered in snow. It's always windy. And so staying close to the ground and being small is really, really helpful there. But if you're in California on the coast where it's nice and warm and sunny, you got lots of rain, then you're trying to compete with all the other trees. You want to get to the sunshine. You don't want to be shaded out. You're going to grow as tall and as big as you can to compete with those. So the 1 to 2 centimeter tall willows, they can be just as old as these big old California redwoods. It's just that the size of them is so different because of the choices they're making to do the best at living in the environment that they're in. And speaking of cool and crazy environments, or maybe hot and dry environments, welwitschia is one of the longest lived plants. So those sequoias can live to be, 500-600 years old. Some of the Arctic willows that we find can be thousands of years old. But these welwitschia plants that grow in the Namib Desert can be as old as 1,500 years old. So these are the oldest plants in the world. So this is a picture of them here, and they're really cool. Because they have this really swirly growth pattern. They're only found in this very specific dry desert environment. And those leaves that they'll have them for their entire life. So you can see this 1,500 old plant, 1,500 years ago, it would have started growing its leaves, and it's going to keep growing those leaves and keep growing them until they start to kind of shred and turn into ribbons. And they'll be as long as 150 meters long. They can get up to if you've got a 1,500-year-old plant. And so these are really, really cool. And they are also one of the oldest plants that is in a living collection that's been collected as a seed and grown. So the university in South Africa, which is one of my dream places to go botanizing, has 100-year-old specimen of the exact same plant that they have been cultivating. So these ones are pretty cool if we're talking about the oldest plants in the world. So we've got the smallest, we've got the tallest, we've got the oldest. Where do we go from here? Well, we're in a desert. We're thinking about plants that dry out. One of my favorite plants to think about are these resurrection plants. And so one of the most common ones that you'll hear about is actually a fern, this Selaginella, or it's called resurrection plant, or you'll see it called the rose of Jericho, rose of resurrection. Both of these plants on the left-hand side, they're living. It's just one of them, because it's used to growing in a desert environment, has been dried out, and one of them has been exposed to water. And so these plants, when they're in the desert, they make a decision and they say, when it's really dry, it's really hard for me to keep photosynthesizing and living, so I'm going to just go dormant. And so I'm going to look like I'm dead so I can protect myself. And as soon as there's water, within hours, it will turn green like this. And You can actually buy these all over the internet. They come as these, like, they look like dry, dead plants. And as soon as you put them in water, you can watch them grow.
I'm in. I'm going right now, I think.
They will come back to life. It's amazing. And make sure if you're ordering them, that you're ordering them from somewhere that are sustainably and ethically propagated, because we always want to support propagated plants and not wild harvested plants. And so I gave the example with the kind of the commercially available resurrection plant, but there's actually more than 240 flowering plants around the world. So mosses and ferns are really good at drying out and coming back to life, but there are also flowering plants that do this too. And so you can see this isn't something just happened once. I can't say like, oh, this one is from this desert. We find them all over the world, including in the US. So the US deserts are a great place to find these. And this is an example of one of these. So this is called the resurrection bush. And what these plants do is, you can see you've got a branch here. If you put this in water, within a few hours, it will look like the one on the right. And the reason they can do this is they replace all of their water with sugar. So it's kind of like a dream if you could change your lunches moving forward, so you didn't have to drink any water and you could just drink pop. This is what the plants are doing, because all of that sugar helps them to not lose all their kind of structure. It protects them when they dry out or if they freeze. So it doesn't make ice crystals and it doesn't dry out. So these are our miracle plants that can look like they die and come back to life. So what about what plants eat? So plants, we've talked about plants photosynthesizing. We've talked about plants stealing sugar from other plants. What about plants that grow in environments that just don't have that much to eat there? So these are some of my favorite plants because they are very, very smart, and you're going to find a theme here. So some plants have very unusual diets, and our theme today is poop. So pitcher plants are really, really cool because they live in these places where they have not very many nutrients. If you're a pitcher plant, you probably grow in a bog. There's just not that much nitrogen available for these plants. So nitrogen and sugar are two of the biggest things that a plant needs to grow. It lets them build all the building blocks of life. If there's not very much around, where do you get them from? Well, if you are this pitcher plant, the Nepenthes raja, what you do is you bribe all the little mice and mammals to come visit you with a sweet, sugary treat that is actually a laxative. So that means it makes them poop. So you make a nice, sweet, sugary treat. You get all the mice and the rodents to come, that while they're eating the sugar, it makes them poop. And then you collect all the poop, and now you have a pre-digested meal for you with lots and lots of nitrogen available. So this little rat or this little shrew is maybe not that smart. It's licking the inside of its own toilet, but it's pretty sweet. And so it's worth the trade-off if you are this mouse. So these plants have actually created a buffet, and then we'll call it a collection plate for the other end of the buffet to feed the plants. Some of the plants have a preference for bats. So this is another type of plant. This one, instead of making sugar, this Nepenthes species actually makes itself a little home for bats. And so it basically creates a little roost for the bats to come and sleep in. While the bats are sleeping, they'll poop, and then it's got a conveniently located poop collection vessel at the bottom. Again, it collects all those nice, easily digested materials, and the plant slowly breaks them down and uses them for itself. So we've got our little bat here checking out where it's going to hang out for the day. And I'll say plants are pretty smart, and sometimes they're pretty lazy. So some plants will just honestly do anything to not have to make a nectar to find a pollinator. So when we think about plants and we think about bees and pollination, usually you have a flower that smells sweet and you've got sugar. The bees come, they collect the sugar to make their honey, and they take the pollen and move it around between plants as the trade-off. And the plants and the bees have this understanding. But some plants just suck if you're a bee. And these plants are very, very tricky. So this example that I'm showing you here is called the bee orchid. And so you might be able to guess, looking at it, how it got its name. So this is actually the flower. The flower is trying to look like a bee. This is an orchid that's not going to make any sugar, but it's saying, I am friend-shaped. Come hang out with me. And so the bees will come over. They will try to hang out with their friend. As they do it, they'll get you can see all the fluffies on this fake bee that the plant has made. It's going to rub all its pollen all over the bee, and then the bee will get confused, realize it's not actually another bee, and will fly away and try and find another friend that, as they say, if not friend, why friend shaped? The plants are doing it too. They'll also do some really weird and kind of gross things. So I know this is one that Jesse and I both love, the corpse flowers. So these are some of the biggest flowers in the world. These are also parasitic plants. You might be sensing a theme. If you can't make your own sugar, you do some wild and crazy things to get it. But these flowers actually make themselves smell like rotting flesh or rotting meat. And so you've got these big flowers, they kind of look like rotting meat, and they make the same smells that rotting meat will make. And what it does is it confuses flies into thinking that it actually is. The flies will come, they'll fly around in this flower, they might lay their eggs there, and while they're doing it, again, get covered in pollen. They'll do this to the next flower. The flower gets pollinated, but it never has to give up any sugar, because sugar is really expensive to make if you're a plant, especially if you're a plant that doesn't make your own sugar. So if you're already stealing it from someone else, then you don't really want to give it up. And again, as a bonus, so we're talking about the smallest, the tallest, the oldest. These are some of the largest flowers in the world. So you can see a person for scale here measuring one of these flowers. And honestly, as I was putting together this presentation, plants are just kind of manipulative. It's not good to be an insect if you're dealing with plants. You have to keep an eye on them. So this is another example. This isn't a specific plant, but lots of plants do this really cool thing where if they are willing to give up some sugar, they'll actually use it to kind of raise their own armies of insects. So these are called extra floral nectaries. They're basically little tiny sugar pots. And this is on a cherry tree. And they'll make these little sugar pots, and it will attract ants and other insects to come that will actually help to keep all of the pests that eat the plant down. So if you've got a bunch of ants that won't eat you, they'll just take the sugar. They will actually control any of the other bugs that you don't want eating you. So the ants are quite territorial, and they'll say, step off of my plant, this is my plant. And they basically have their own defensive brigade that plants will have their own little ant army that they can bribe just by giving them some sweet treats and sugar. And so I just wanted to wrap up by saying these, I think, are some of the coolest plants in the world, but there are so many plants out there. And to me, the answer of what the actual single coolest plant in the world is the one that is outside your door. So you should always take some time to go outside and look a little bit closer, because you never know what you might find. And so I think the coolest plants are the ones that I get to meet on any given day. So this is actually a sequoia in the park by my house that I get to walk past every day with my dogs. So there's my pitch to everyone. Go outside, meet your plants. They might be cooler than you think. So Jesse, that's what I got for slides, but I'd love to hear if there's any questions.
Amazing. Well, I was running away. It took me a second to get your slide off because I was bringing out my sequoia seed. So I got this in England, actually, in a sort of aristocrat's garden. But like, I could grow the biggest thing that's ever existed on planet Earth with this, which is kind of cool. In fact, I could grow a lot of them. So one day I might like unleash the tree horde on the world because they are the coolest plants. So there we are. We are going to begin with our Kahoot together. So I know we got a few people new to Kahoots. I think we got some classes in already as just like whole classes. If you do want to just yell out the answers in your class, that's totally fine as well. And if you don't want to play along, that's also cool. But we are going to begin as I cue this up. Lauren, I don't know how you can see us or if you can see us, but if you want to come out of screen share, you can. You can also keep it on, whatever makes you happy. We'll begin with our two Kahooters. And if you come in after, that's totally good as well. And the faster you answer, the more points you get. So we are going to dive in. And Lauren, if you want to give us little hints along the way, that is fantastic.
Okay,
all right.
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. We had a fun Kahoot a minute ago, so I'm excited to get back to it. Ooh, tallest tree in the world. We talked about this. What do we think? Is it? Let's see. We got our answers. Okay, over 300 feet, 200 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. That's a big.
And I give you the answer in meters, so don't let it trick you.
Man, between 10 centimeters and then doing feet, I'm getting in trouble with all of Canada. I am Canadian, I swear. Over 300 feet. So how many meters is that?
About 116.
160 meters. It's a totally ridiculous thing that
It's
anything
hard
could
to
be
wrap
that
your
big.
head around. I know.
Yeah. You can't wrap your head around it. You can't even wrap your arms around it. Gigantic. We did not cover this. This is in our usual programs with Lauren. How many senses do plants have? 5 like people, 1, 13, or 143? Let's see. All right.
We talked about one. We talked about one smelling, one plant that could smell today.
Maybe more than one.
Plants. Oh,
a lot of people thought
so.
6. A lot of people thought 5. That is incorrect. The 2 of you that chose 13 have our correct answer. That's going to mess with our leaderboard a lot. Cute Newt has our lead in a big way. Okay. We're going to question 3, and then we're going to take your questions. Feel free to share on YouTube anytime you'd like. The more questions, the happier we are. Plants have been around for how long? 7 million years, as long as people. We have no idea. 240 million years, as old as dinosaurs, or 450 million years, as old as sharks. And my hint for this is, like, before other animals could sort of hang out on the surface and come out of the ocean, there had to be plants for them to eat. So, big mix. Plants are a lot older than people. Way, way older than us. Plants are one of the first things to ever come on land. The only things that are sort of comparable time are like dragonflies and millipedes, which is kind of cool. But we need that plant substrate to make that all possible. So let's see what that does to our leaderboard. Does Cute Newt keep it? Cute Newt keeps it commandingly over illustrious.
Those resurrection plants are sometimes called dinosaur plants because they've been around since the dinosaurs. So
where are some places that plants can't live? Now, in this picture, there are no plants that we can see very readily, but can they live?
There might be plants. You might just have to look closer.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, that perhaps there are plants anywhere we might want them to be or not expect them to be. Oh, we got all our answers in. None of the above. Yes, plants are everywhere. They're like all over the place. The only place.
Did you know, Jesse, there's even plants in Antarctica?
There's tons of plants, and it's one of my favorite stories in nature in the world, that if you crack open a rock in the heart of Antarctica, there are lichens inside the rocks, like a plant and a fungi finding each other friend-shaped. They get to hang out inside rocks in the middle of the driest, coldest places on planet Earth, which is crazy. So many good. You guys did great. Brave Sloth second. First for all the marbles is it Cute Newt? Cute Newt, you killed it. Way to go.
Awesome.
Okay. Let's dive in with questions. Feel free to keep chiming in on YouTube, folks. We already have a few. We'll take as many as we possibly can over the next 15 minutes together. Lauren, what is your favorite plant? The question you get every time. No pressure at all. Favorite plant today, maybe.
Favorite plant today. This is so hard. Okay, favorite plant today. So I do lots of berry research. So everyone expects me to say berries. Berries are pretty awesome. But today I might go with the Venus flytrap. They're pretty cool. They're pretty cool. They eat the bugs. They know when a bug is there versus a leaf. They can move. They make decisions. They're pretty cool. Today I'm gonna go different. I'm gonna say Venus flytrap.
This is a great segue into our second question, because we have a question on, like, what's the biggest thing Venus flytraps can? Could they eat people? Because do I have to worry in certain places about being munched by a giant plant, or is there like a limit to their carnivorousness?
Ooh, great question. Okay, so Venus flytrap probably can't eat a person. They might be able to eat a small chunk of you if you like cut off the tip of your finger, but they're pretty limited. And your finger, if you dropped your finger on it, it actually wouldn't even eat it if it was just like not moving, because they only eat things that move around. They've got a really specialized system where they have to have 2 of those little hairs I pointed out need to be touched independently. Or be touched twice to make sure it's something living and not just a piece of leaf. So Venus flytrap won't be able to eat you, but some of those pitcher plants, those nepenthes, can get big enough that they could actually eat a small rodent. So maybe if you had like a very young sibling you were trying to get rid of, hypothetically, you could maybe, but I'm gonna go with this, mostly limited to small rodents.
Nice.
You're probably okay.
The juxtaposition of a woman wearing bright red hearts while talking about severed fingers and babies you want to put in plants is just, thank you for that in my day. Elena wants to know. So we got people on the Venus flytrap train now. It's too late
Okay.
to go back. Wants to know how
Excellent.
many bugs a Venus flytrap can eat in one day.
Ooh, great question. So, Venus flytraps, it actually takes a lot of energy to close and open those traps. So, it's probably only going to be able to eat one bug per day per trap. So the answer will be depending on how many traps a plant have. Some of them get quite big; they can have quite a few. But they have to have the energy to close, and then they have to take quite a bit of time kind of digesting and breaking down those insects. So they're not going to be able to eat more than one insect per day per trap.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that. I don't think we've had that one before, so thanks, Elena.
That's
Keep
a
them
great
coming. Keep them
question.
coming. You highlighted these really big monster trees. Are they the biggest trees ever? Do we know of bigger trees that were in like in the same way that dinosaurs are bigger than things now? Were there like monster 800-foot trees back in the day, or is the sequoia the biggest of all time?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess biggest is a good question too, a good word, Jesse. And I'll be a little bit of my professor here because biggest versus tallest is a different thing. So if we're talking about the biggest tree in the world, there's actually a clonal population of aspen trees that they're all genetically the same and they cover like acres. And so if you're talking about the biggest tree in the world, those I think they're called pando. That the aspen colony might actually be bigger. They just aren't taller.
That's very interesting. I love aspen. We had them down the trail when I was younger back in Toronto, and like there's like 100 of the same tree, and you see it like popping up. It's like a unkillable tree monster that's coming for you.
Yes.
It's probably come across the water for me. If I look out my window, it might be there. So I'm going to just block
Make
that
sure
out.
you say only nice things about them, Jesse, because the plants can
Aspen,
hear.
my favorite tree, the aspen. Cool. Great question, guys. How do you become a professor? So if someone wants to be you, our query is, what would someone have to study to do that? Maybe in grade 2 or grade 12 or anywhere in between?
That is such a good question, and the answer is surprising. So when I was in school, in middle school and in high school, I kind of just studied everything. And then when I got to university, I actually studied microbes, and then I studied insects. And then I realized that all of those are super boring and plants are actually way more awesome. So you don't have to know right away if you want to be a professor. You can kind of find your way there. The main thing that you have to be willing to do is to be in school for a really long time. So after I did high school, I did basically high school all over again. So I did 4 years for my undergrad, 2 years for my master's, 4 years for a PhD. That's another 10 years there. So you just have to be willing to never leave school. So if school is your favorite thing in the world, then come be a professor with me.
Amazing. Well, and I want to stress, I love when we get this question and we get to talk about this specific thing because it sounds so daunting. Like you're in grade 4 and you're like 8 more years to grade 12 and then maybe 10 years after that. Like, but the people that do want to do that, and it's not for everybody, but if you do, you get to work with the coolest people in the world that love exactly what you love. You usually get to go to really interesting places to hang out with them and do cool science together. And you get to play with your work for fun for the rest of your life. You get to be like, what cool thing can I think up next? And you get to do that, and people pay you to do that. And you get to hire a bunch of people in like a lab to do that. Lauren has a very cool job. So that's
We just have a plant nerd party every day. Sometimes
day.
we go to the Arctic to do it, and sometimes we go to the desert to do it. It's awesome. So.
You sort of answered this at the beginning, but our question is: have you ever been tempted to study anything else? Like, do you secretly? Are you like secretly like a fan of like lions and tigers and bears? Oh my, or anything, or is it plants for you all the way?
I mean, these days we're all plants all the way these days, but I didn't know right away. I think I did know because when I was a kid, I was always out there like digging in the dirt, like finding different plants because I just love them. But I started when I did research actually studying insects, and then I realized that all the plants can mind control the insects, and so the plants are actually way cooler than them. But if I look around, like even in my office, I've got this awesome aquarium behind me, and I got it, and it's full of plants, as you can see. But there's also freshwater shrimp in there, so we treat we we do like all different kinds of life. It's just plants are obviously the coolest, and all those cute fuzzy things are just like accessories.
Wimps, yeah, they're way later on the scene than the plants. The plants could eat their lunch, and in the case of the Venus flytrap, maybe literally. So there you go.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to another Venus flytrap question in a second. But before we do, good follow-up to this. How many years have you been studying plants? How long have you been a plant nerd?
That's awesome. That's a great question. I mean, maybe all my life, but formally, as a researcher, I have been studying plants for more than 10 years. So the math
And are
is
you
too hard.
done
I have
soon?
10 fingers, so I can
10
say
fingers?
10 and then I run out. I'm not a math person. So you have to find a math professor.
You're funny. How tall do Venus flytraps get? We've got someone who might want a Venus flytrap, maybe. What's their scale?
Okay,
Don't say 10
I like
centimeters.
it. So yeah, they don't get super tall. Venus flytraps, they kind of grow in like a mound, and so they'll grow out more than they'll grow up. So they'll stay pretty small. If you want to get a Venus flytrap at home, you just want to remember that all of those carnivorous plants, they live in soil that is really, really nutrient poor. So you don't want to plant them in the same house plant mix that you're using for everything else. You want to put them in something that's like very mossy, doesn't have too much fertilizer in it, and then don't poke them all the time, because every time they close their traps, it costs them energy. So only have them close their traps if you're feeding them something to replace it.
Fantastic. Our advice is I need to get one. I really want one behind me in my broadcast. I could just like live and sort of loom over my ear like a sword of Damocles. We'll work on that together.
Yeah. Excellent, Jesse. I'll be very disappointed if there isn't one next time.
Okay, good. Well, I won't, and I'll invite you back in a month or so. I'm in rural and western Newfoundland. It is hard to source some of these things, but I'll try my best. Maybe some resurrection plants just surrounded by fake death.
You could do pitcher plant though.
I could. We've got them like literally down the road from me. So okay, we'll talk. Time flies when you're having fun. We are going to take just a few more questions, and if people have any extras, they can email them to me at exploringbytheseatofyourpants. We'll get them to Lauren. Keep the excitement going. How do plants get all their smarts? Cool question.
That might be one of my favorite questions that I have gotten so far, Jesse, and we've had quite a few questions. So how do plants get their smarts? So plants, if we think about like how they came to be, it's the slow plot process of evolution. And basically, if you are a plant and you're not very smart, you're probably going to run out of food, become food, or dry out, or in some other way die. So plants have become really smart by kind of necessity. If you don't learn to understand everything going on around you really, really well, then if you can't get up and run away, it's really hard to keep living. So those resurrection plants figured out that, if it's starting to get dry out, it's probably going to stay dry for quite a while if you're in a desert. And so if you're just like, oh, maybe one more day, I think that there's going to be rain in 2 days. The plants are like, nope, we know every single time this happens, it's just going to be dry for months. So we're going to shut everything down. We're going to go and just like go dormant, go hibernate like a bear. And then once it starts to rain again, then we'll come back out, because once it starts raining, we're in the rainy season, it's going to be okay. So plants got their smarts by learning about their environment, and the ones that didn't learn, that was it for them.
But a lot of that's the old natural selection evolution trick that you're going to get a lot of with biologists of all kinds. So if you keep coming back to our broadcast, that's going to be a recurring theme for you all. Lauren, thank you so much for capstoning our amazing International Day for Women and Girls in STEM. I will highlight for our classes the best resource I've ever seen showcasing amazing women is If Then She Can. Can't encourage you to check it out enough. So many great videos, stories, programs, and more. And of course, Lauren's program and everything else that we do is on our YouTube channel as well. So bazillion things to discover there. I think literally about 3,000 broadcasts with amazing women from around the world on our YouTube channel. So go back to when I looked like a little boy in 2014 and my first program with amazing women at the Victoria Bug Zoo. Lauren, before we wrap up and say farewell, is there any final message about how amazing plants are you want to leave us with today?
Oh, final message. I just want to remind everyone that you have plants wherever you are. If you're in the middle of a city or if you're out on a farm, doesn't matter. There are plants everywhere. And if you just take 5 minutes to go outside and find one and look closely at it, you might be amazed at what you can learn from them. So my final suggestion is go today. My challenge I'll give you is go outside today, find a plant somewhere behind your house or behind your school, and see if you can learn something about it, because it might just surprise you.
No better message than that. That's so delightful. Thank you, Lauren, so much for joining us yet again. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Go Canada, go. I know that I've mixed up measurements several times for this broadcast, but Team Canada, we got some ice dance in like an hour. I can't hardly wait. And with that, I'll say farewell. Have a wonderful day. Bye to our whole